Some hijinks down the stretch, but in the end, the Hawks go on to take down Philly on their home wood, 128-124 in Game 1. Trae Young becoming the first Hawks player with 35 points and 10 assists in a playoff game ever in franchise history. The Hawks got up 47 threes in this one, made 20 of them, so they shot it better than 42% from long range. The Sixers only pouring in 10 threes. That perhaps the difference in this game. Some offensive inefficiencies despite the 124 points, but a high-scoring affair. Hawks were laying 4.5. They were catching 4.5. They paid you plus 170 on the money line, and this one comes in over the 219.5. All right, some further history made by Trae Young in this one. Most career points in first 6 career playoff games, this dating back to 1976-77. A pretty prestigious list that Ice Trae joins with 181 points through his first 6 career playoff games. Anthony Davis, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Michael Jeffrey Jordan. But Trae Young starting his playoff career out in a big way throughout the first 6 games after making a statement in the Big Apple, now taking his talents to Philly, where he claims Game 1. Let's welcome in CBS Sports NBA Insider Bill Reiter for more on this one. Bill, an exciting game down the stretch. A bit of a snoozer there in the middle, but in the end, Philly makes a push that comes up short. Trae Young just too much. Your initial reaction here to the Game 1 win by the Hawks on the road?
Initial reaction, I guess there's 3, at least for now. Fingers crossed. Joel Embiid looked really good, though. Friendly reminder to Sixers fans, just a little word of caution if you're thinking how to bet this series. Anthony Davis looked pretty great in Game 2 of that last series. Those injuries you got to keep an eye on. The second takeaway is the Hawks are for real. And, Joe, we talked about this when I was in New York last week. And I think the third and major one is it's a different thing trying to beat the top seed in a conference in the second round of the postseason. And you saw the Hawks get tight and almost give that thing away. It's going to be a hell of a series. Both these teams are good enough to win. And there's a lot between here and whoever gets that done that'll decide this thing. Yeah, we're talking conference semifinals, so perhaps we are looking at 6 or 7 across the border. At least we hope we are here as fans. But, Bill, give me the breakdown here of some of the limiting factors. Obviously a high-scoring game here, but defensively, the 76ers leaving plenty to be desired as opposed to the defensive effort they've put forth throughout the season. But Ben Simmons seemed to be the limiting factor here offensively. Just his inability to create a shot. Joel Embiid in no way limited, pouring in 39 points despite that meniscus tear. But offensively, is Ben Simmons slowing down the 76ers from what they'd like to do? Yeah, he is. And I don't want to sleep on his defensive excellence, particularly at the end of that game. It was really, Joe, 2 different Sixers teams. They were one team in the first half, hapless and overwhelmed, almost surprised by the Atlanta Hawks. In the second half, especially that fourth quarter, they took control, and you saw the best and the worst of Ben Simmons. Defensively, especially at the end of the game, Simmons was a critical part of really starting to fluster the Hawks, Trae Young included. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about a postseason reality where half-court offense and the ability to get your shot off is critically important. Simmons was far from effective, as we know he will be from the free throw line. He was great dunking the ball, great attacking the rim, but he can't shoot the rock. So just an interesting situation for Doc Rivers. On the one hand, Simmons is the most important player on the floor, not named Joel Embiid, especially defensively. On the other hand, when the Hawks have it rolling, when they're actually operating and executing their offensive ambitions, which they do at a pretty high level, you have to have more than Embiid to counter that, more than Seth Curry. Simmons is just going to have to find a way not to be a liability offensively down the stretch of games.
You mentioned Embiid with his 39-9. Ice Trae with 35 points of his own, 10 assists to boot. Both of these head coaches going to be losing some sleep over the next couple nights trying to figure out ways to stop these stars. In terms of the job in front of Doc Rivers and the 76ers, how do you go about limiting Trae Young? Do you put a body on him? Do you bring 2 at him? How do you slow down this scoring juggernaut in his young playoff career?
Yeah, Joe, I think you just hit on one of the things you have to do. You've got to be really physical. Now, I know it didn't work with the Knicks, and there are people around the NBA who might suggest the Knicks went up on the borderline of being dirty at times. Doesn't matter. You've got to put a body on Trae Young. And I'll be curious because we know the postseason is all about moves and counter moves and making adjustment, particularly game to game. Is this a situation where the Sixers saw at the end of the game that when they played defense in a full court strategy, that backcourt wasn't able to operate efficiently? Maybe they're going to start to pressure the ball handler a lot more from the inbound, and maybe we're going to see a situation where they're going to work diligently, and they've got the pieces to do this defensively, to just keep the ball out of Trae Young's hand up until the half-court offense begins and trap him in the corner. Now, maybe some of that was nerves, but I think you got to be physical, and you got to try to really put pressure on all the ball handlers for that Atlanta team, including Trae Young, early in every possession for Atlanta.
And you start finding yourself on lists with Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and the points are just going to come. As they say, it is more of a case of limitation than stopping when it comes to Ice Trae in these playoffs. You love yourself some value, and you gave us a value pick with the Hawks pre-series. Obviously, you're sticking with that pick here, but how emboldened are you in that series pick of the Hawks after Game 1, Bill Reiter?
To be honest, I feel a little bit less emboldened because some of the value there was the uncertainty of Joel Embiid, right? We just don't know with that meniscus tear where he was going to be. It's only one game, and I already referenced Anthony Davis. He looked really different injury, different situation, but a critical player to a team's offensive and defensive approach who has a history of injuries in this NBA sort of bizarro season where sources have talked about the reality of injuries are going to keep popping up. We saw it the Nets last night. We've seen it really with every team just about in the NBA. So the fact that Embiid's out there makes the value seem a little bit less to me, but the Hawks did get that first win. Trae Young, and you reference his comparisons to Jordan and Luka and LeBron and the other names on that list, was made for this moment. He's not afraid. He probably should be afraid. The Sixers were the second best defensive team in the NBA. They're the best defensive team left in the postseason because the Lakers are out. But to me, this is an Atlanta team that doesn't know what they don't know. They don't realize they're not supposed to play like that over the first half in Philly. Guys like DeAndre Hunter didn't even play in this game, so John Collins steps up. Bogdan Bogdanovic was huge, iced a couple free throws, hit that huge three from the left side of the arc when things were starting to crumble. I just like the pieces Atlanta have. I think they have more depth, and with all respect to Joel Embiid, I think Trae Young is the better offensive weapon in these kinds of moments because he can hit those shots, create some space. It's going to be close. Don't know where Embiid's going to be physically, but I still like Atlanta. Bet them today. Talk my brother and his gambling syndicate into riding that against their wishes. So, one down on the money line. So far, so good.
He is Bill Reiter. He is breaking it all down here on CBS Sports HQ. Going to be a fun couple weeks out east. Thank you, Bill. All right, here's what it looks like out in front of us. Game 2 coming your way Tuesday at 7:30 Eastern from Philly. Then games 3 and 4 will shift to the ATL. Those coming on the 11th and the 14th. All these times beyond Game 3 are to be determined. But whenever game time is, these two offenses are going to bring it. Big points all over the place between the Hawks and the Sixers.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.